My name's Gurveer Brah. This is Screen Off Script. Today, I'm here with the director and producer of Crime 101, Bart Layton. First off, Bart, this movie is so cool. The car chases, the crime, the robbery, the romance, and the commentary on materialism. It's genuinely such a well-rounded film. I just want to say congratulations.
Thank you, Matt. That's so nice to hear. Appreciate it.
The first thing I want to kind of talk about is what I was just mentioning before, the awesome car chases. And we just saw it in like one battle after another. And now we have this amazing sequence with Chris Hemsworth and Barry Cogan. Clearly, there's something in the water, but what's the art behind a really great car chase? And when I say an all-time great car chase, what comes to mind for you?
Well, okay. So I would say the art. Listen. There's different kinds, right? There's the kind, and they're all very enjoyable in their own way. There's the kind of Michael Bay, Bad Boys, which I love. And the John Wick version and all the rest of it, where the kind of cars are basically used as weapons. It's very clever. I love that. But I feel like those sometimes you're watching rather than participating, right? And so I feel like for me, my instinct is like, how can I make you feel like you're not watching, but you're in it, right? And so that, I guess, becomes a mantra which you then extend to the methodology of how you shoot it and how you construct it. And so, technology now can allow us to do all kinds of really wild things. You can have cameras go in and out of cars, windows, and you can then put the windows back in visual effects and stuff. I don't really go for that because I feel like it maybe takes you out. You start becoming aware of the tricks. But what you can do is you can put people right in it. And, so to answer your question, the people that I would probably look to who've done that are like probably Billy Friedkin is the ultimate, right? If you think about his two movies, French Connection and To Live and Die in LA, those are the most batshit crazy car chases, and obviously Bullet. And I think they had a genuine danger. I actually spoke to Billy Friedkin. I was lucky enough. He saw the last film I made, and he requested my presence for lunch. And I asked him a lot about how he did that. And the answer was basically they were very flipping lucky they didn't kill anyone because they didn't. Health and safety was not what it is now. So my objective was to do something that has that level of visceral danger, but not hurt anyone in the process. And so we built technology. So for example, we built a kind of robotic technology where we could have a camera which felt like a handheld camera in the car with Chris Hemsworth traveling at 80 miles an hour. But you can't put a physical camera person in that car, right? If something happened, it would be instant death. So you build a robotic head, and then in another car racing behind, we have the camera operator with a what's called I can't even remember the name of it, but it's basically if you imagine like it's like surgery, nowadays they're doing surgery, and then the robot is actually moving so it's similar. So when the camera operator in the car behind does this, the robot in the next to Chris in the car in front does that. So it's a kind of a proxy camera operator, so what that gives you is a feeling of extreme real immersion. Exactly. Yeah.
Then genuinely, my exact wording was I felt like I was in the passenger seat when I was watching those car chases, and I think you executed that perfectly.
Love to hear that.
And this might honestly be like the best work of Chris Hemsworth's career. How did you know, like, when you were casting, like, how did you know you had exactly the right role for him? And honestly, one thing I'm curious is like, did he surprise you in any way with how he was able to execute your vision?
100%. It was one of the most rewarding, joyful surprises watching him get better and better and better. I knew that he had this potential as an actor because I think there's a lot that we've seen him do comedically in other things that you kind of think that's easy. It's like those great comic actors like Adam Sandler and who
Bob
else?
Williams.
Yeah, who have kind of transitioned from that to being these it's hard doing that kind of comic thing. And we did a lot of research. We studied a lot of people. We talked to real jewel thieves, and we talked about their backgrounds, and we found testimonies from people who'd had very difficult childhoods, and that all went into building these characters. And Chris changed his posture, he changed his voice, the register of where his voice is. It's a very different Chris Hemsworth in a very exciting way. So I didn't know for 100% that he would pull it off. I felt like we would workshop until he got it there, and I would get to a place where we stripped all of the layers away. But actually, that happened very fast. I had a conversation with another director, Spike Jonze, who I know had met with him and was interested in doing something with him. And Spike said, I think he's got untapped layers, and he was right.
That's amazing. I love to hear that. And I love how candid you are with how you're answering because like it really feels like this is part of the thought process they actually had. And I don't think there's a higher compliment you can be paid when you make a great action crime thriller than when you start to hear comparisons to Michael Mann. And I imagine you're hearing that all day and the entire week, right? But can you talk about what Michael Mann means to you as a filmmaker and
Yeah.
as an influence overall?
It's interesting, I am seeing that a lot, probably more than I had imagined. I guess you can't. Maybe I wonder if we shot this in New York rather than LA, whether you would have had the same level of comparison. Maybe. I guess. Listen, I loved those movies. I loved Heat. I loved Collateral. I particularly loved Thief. I loved the fact that they were real and that the level of research. So yes, it is a compliment. What's less of a compliment is probably the idea of like it's trying to copy, because I think I wasn't. I was trying to construct something a little warmer in tone, like so that they're not they're not as good and professional and cold and kind of. I wanted the more domesticated version where everyone's a little less good at what they do and a little less kind of, and everyone's a little more kind of human. Maybe you connect with them a little more. So yeah, listen, it's a great. I mean, he's the master of the genre, I guess, alongside the people we've talked about, Friedkin and the like. So yeah, and in terms of what he means to me. I remember going to see Heat with my dad and just being like, holy shit, that you can't have more fun at the cinema than that. So he's obviously a terrific filmmaker and incredibly muscular. I suppose I want something that people are a little more, like I say, you're more in it with them, if that makes sense.
No, I understand that. And you know what's interesting is like the last time I heard a lot of comparisons to Michael Mann was when like The Dark Knight came out. So I think it's like it genuinely is the highest of compliments. And I understand the how the comparisons might not feel exactly how you intended it. But I mean there's a lot of like, you know, offshoot comparisons that I can make. Like, did you watch Materialist last year?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, and genuinely, like, obviously, there's a very different movies, but I feel like there's a lot of similar themes about how like money can affect your sense of self-worth, especially when it pertains to like romance, and I think you explored it in a really interesting way with this movie. Um, One thing I wanted to ask you is, what do you think culturally that we're getting wrong about the relationship between romance and materialism right now?
Ooh, that's interesting. I mean, look, I guess it's not just romance, is it? Because it's sort of every area of life. We are in a kind of. There's a great quote which I can't remember who is responsible for, but it's called. It says, "Comparison is the thief of joy," and we are now in a kind of comparison, sort of an age of comparison. Because that's what Instagram and everything does. It presents you with someone else who's probably or who appears to be living a better life than you, right? But they're only putting the best bits out there. And so what you do is you go on there and you feel like, wow, why are they on holiday there? And why have they got so much money? And why are they doing, and so you're in this kind of loop of like feeling less good about yourself. And so I think that just emphasizes this thing, which is the heart of your question and what the movie is, this sense that material, that status and wealth is really the answer to all of it. Because even if you don't feel fulfilled, you'll look like it because other people will see you as a success. And if enough people see you as a success, well, maybe you'll feel like that as well. And so, really, I think, in answer to your question about romance, when you're going through the dating apps and all the rest of it, like, if a guy looks like he can't provide you or with that level of status or that level of lifestyle, maybe you're going to go, you'll swipe left or whatever it is. And you might miss someone who's actually got a better perspective on what's important. Anyway, that's a whole philosophical diversion. But yeah, interesting question.
No, I appreciate that. And genuinely, I feel like this movie is one of those that makes me want to think in like all these random offshoot ways. And that's why I mentioned it at the start. It's such a well-rounded movie. But genuinely, congratulations on everything. And I'm really excited for people to come check this movie out.
Oh, man. I really appreciate it. And it's very gratifying when someone says that those are the things that it encouraged them to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great day for the rest of your time,
Thank
man.
you for your time, mate. Take care.
Take care, brother.